During the day, the leopard's silence is golden. But when night falls, that silence becomes a weapon deadly enough to make it one of the most successful predators. Now, using the latest infrared technology, this wildlife special captures on camera the big cat who does the lion's share of its hunting in total darkness. Meet the Leopard, Wednesday at 8 on BBC One.
The Animal Zone on BBC Two in just over 5 minutes includes reports from the Chimpanzee Diary and discovers the hidden world of the microscopic bug.
Caroline's in a terrible quandary.
All I've done is run after him, and he just sat there with his feet up in his hotel.
Where was he last night?
Did you stay around somebody's? Oh, it's absolutely everywhere for him. Wow, getting in at 7:30, that's a bit late, isn't it?
But is Juan a cheating love rat?
So all the time then he has had 2 girlfriends? Just because I'm from Essex, it doesn't mean to say you can treat me like a snapper.
It's time to get to the bottom of Juan Miguel. Holiday Reps, Thursday at 8:30 on BBC One.
Now on BBC One, Gavin Campbell introduces this month's edition of Lifeline.
Hello. We start with this month's Lifeline appeal, which is made by Terry Waite.
When I was in captivity, I lost many of the things that most of us take for granted: family, friends, and freedom. In the 6 years since my release, I still feel strongly for those who don't have these things, and that's why I'm involved with the national charity Emmaus, which provides a home for those that don't have one, and more than that, companionship and an opportunity for people to get back on their feet again.
Homelessness is no sort of respecter of class or any form of, category within society. It can hit anybody. I think the really unique thing about Emmaus is that it asks no questions of anybody coming through the door. We accept people for the person they are when they stand before us, without looking at what's happened to them in their past. We don't set about changing people. We're about providing a home for people, a foundation from which they can move if they want to provide them with the stability which may be lacking.
Emmaus communities are unique. They support themselves by collecting, refurbishing, recycling and selling unwanted furniture and household goods. The people who live and work here come off the dole and make their own living.
My main job is to scrap because I enjoy doing it, but if there's other jobs that need doing, then obviously I help out. And recycled things come in like gas cookers, which they can't sell to customers anymore, so you strip them down and you get the brass and the copper and the aluminium and whatever else is attached to it, and at the end of the process, when it's all finished, it all goes onto the skip, and you also get money for the skip as well. The good thing is you're just not claiming income support, and everything you work for, you get a sense of pride at the end of the week. You've earned £30, and that's your £30, and you've worked hard for it. Rather than people staying in bed sits and being bored and picking up a jarro every fortnight or every week or whatever the case may be, to me that's not a life, that's just an existence. Better off getting involved with an Emmaus or something and making something of your life.
There are now 7 Emmaus communities in the UK, in Belfast, Brighton, Cambridge, Coventry, Greenwich, Manchester and Dover.
At the moment we have 9 companions, and we're hoping eventually to have between 20 and 24. We've got an awful lot of work to do up here, as you can see. The building has become quite derelict. We've put a new roof on, which is limiting the damage now. Obviously with the weather it's quite fierce and exposed up here. We have to clear all of the old timber. It's mostly rotten, and then we intend to section off the upstairs and have 14 more bedrooms. It's a really dignified thing for the lads and lasses here. I mean, they're having to work extremely hard, and the donations that we have, they're not a handout because they're not constantly going to be asked for. Eventually we will be self-supporting and we will be standing on our own 2 feet.
I'm more open than I used to be. I wouldn't say boo to a goose when I moved down here. I moved down here last October. haven't looked back really.
Coming on well, isn't it? Yeah, very well. I feel okay now. I just feel as if I don't need to hide away so much. I can deal with people. People I live with, different personalities, sometimes get me mad, but I just take it in my stride. Before I come into a mess, I always used to say to me, when I die, I'm going to crawl away and die alone because I'm so selfish, but I couldn't do that now.
And the aim of Emmaus can be summed up very simply. It is the love of a human being for another human being for another reason than that is what they are. And they're entitled to certain things that nobody has a right to deprive them of. And that's friendship, a roof over their head, food and warmth.
This is fair though, it's raining. And for the first time in their lives when they come to Emmaus, they actually do have a home and begin to experience a place where they can be what they're entitled to be. Human beings with an opportunity to live and live life as fully as possible. When I came home, I needed security and an opportunity to get back on my feet again. That's exactly what the homeless need. Our aim is to build an Emmaus community outside every major city of the United Kingdom. And to do that, we need your help. Emmaus is entirely dependent on public support, so will you please help us? If you'd like to make a donation, our telephone number is 0181 746 2222. I'll repeat it, 0181 746 2222. The address will be on the screen at the end of the programme. Meanwhile, thank you so much for all your help and support.
Each Monday night over the past few weeks, BBC Two's Land of the Tiger has brought us wonderful stories and beautiful images celebrating the unique wildlife of the Indian subcontinent. Master of all it surveys, the tiger is a supreme predator with no natural enemies, except, that is, man. Tigers are being pushed over the edge to extinction by an illegal trade in tiger parts for traditional Chinese medicines and so-called aphrodisiacs. Their very existence now hangs in the balance. Today, less than 6,000 tigers survive in the wild, and they're being killed at the rate of more than one a day. As things stand, there may be none left by the time we're celebrating the millennium. If you want to know what you can do to help save the tiger, then contact the 24-hour Save Tigers hotline on 0839 77 2277. That's 0839 77 2277, and calls cost 49 pence a minute. Christmas is a time of year when we all enjoy our food and drink and catch up with family and friends. But you know, for many older people living on their own, Christmas can also be a very lonely, cold and quiet time of year. Help the Aged need you to help them change this with some Christmas fundraising. So how about getting together with some friends and going carol singing? To get you started, Help the Aged have prepared a pack which contains carol sheets, collection boxes and fundraising advice. So to get yours, call Help the Aged right now on 0171 253 0253. That's 0171 253 0253. Nyanyik lives in Sudan, a country devastated by war. She suffers from guinea worm, a crippling disease affecting tens of thousands of people, and it's caused by drinking water contaminated with guinea worm eggs, which hatch and grow inside the body. It's agony for the victim. But you know, the disease is preventable. Money raised by the international charity World Vision helps supply special filter pipes and cloths to sieve out the guinea worm eggs before cooking or drinking, and it provides medical treatment for those already affected, as well as health education. The Guinea Worm Project is just one of many funded through World Vision's annual 24-hour famine, which is set to take place on the 20th of March 1998. This year, the sponsored fast raised a staggering £1.3 million, and next year they hope to do even better. So if you'd like to take part, you can get your free 24-hour famine pack by calling 0990 24 24 24. That's 0990 24 24 24. This year, the Dyslexia Institute celebrates its 25th anniversary. The charity is launching a special computer-based program designed to help dyslexic people read, spell and understand the written word. The project's very much part of the Dyslexia Institute's overall aim to prevent unnecessary failure and hardship, both in the classroom and later on in life. Now, if you'd like more information about the project, you can contact the Dyslexia Institute on 01784 463 851. That's 01784 463 851. And now, as promised, here's the address for your postal donations to this month's Lifeline Appeal. Emmaus UK, P.O. Box 7, London W12 8UD. That's Emmaus UK, P.O. Box 7, London W12 8UD. And thank you.
The Sports Review of the Year, next Sunday at 8 on BBC One.
What has Mr. Jones done now?
He has killed a man.
To the jail with him!
I am innocent!
Everybody's talking at me. I can't hear a word they're saying. Only the echoes of my mind.
The gallows are much preferable to the Americas.
That vile Mr. Jones! I'm indifferent to what happens to me.
The final chapter of Tom Jones, tonight at 9 on BBC One.
Now on BBC One, the news with Paul Burden.
Thousands of farmers have been demonstrating across the country against cheap beef imports. They've been warned to stay within the law and not to alienate the public. The government is promising more lottery money for poorer families as backbenchers rebel over benefit cuts. And Billy Bremner, the former Leeds United and Scotland footballer, has died at the age of 54. Good evening. Thousands of farmers have taken part in demonstrations across the country as they step up their campaign against cheap beef imports. Several protests were held at ports, including Stranraer, Dover and Plymouth. Farmers' leaders urged members to exercise restraint, and the protests were largely peaceful, though the Road Haulage Association has accused some farmers of intimidating drivers.
This was the scene repeated across Britain today. Farmers stopping lorries to check for beef.
What cargo have you got on board?
At this protest in Hull, the driver is called on to get out and open up his trailer, part of the farmers' attempts to halt the import of cheap beef. In the end, a handshake and a smile clears the way for the driver to continue.
Okay, much obliged, lad.
The tone of the protests may be largely peaceful. The lorry company says some drivers are being intimidated.
Obviously, it's a very disconcerting situation for our members. They're facing long lines of pickets. They're occasionally facing very aggressive picketing. And obviously, it's very worrying for them and very distressing for them.
And that strong pound means lower supports.
Beef farmers are angry about the strong pound, which they say is sucking in cheap imports. But even their union leaders, addressing members in Shropshire this afternoon, are urging them not to alienate public opinion by using violent tactics.
Already we're seeing warnings from the Irish government, from the road hauliers, from the EU Commission, that action can be taken if free trade is stopped. We are not in a position where we can support illegal actions. We've got to pressure the government, not other people.
Another 250 farmers turned up at Stranraer in Scotland today to meet ferries from Ireland. The Conservatives say measures like these are acceptable if they stay within the law.
The Conservative Party doesn't condone any illegal action, but we quite sympathise with the strong stance the farmers are taking because we think they have been pushed beyond the limits by a government that has failed to negotiate anything for them.
The government's approach in all this has been to insist and resist. Insist that the farmers stick to the rule of law, but resist calls for compensation. It's a stance that could come under increasing pressure as the dispute enters its second week. That pressure was again on show in Dover tonight. Police arrested 5 farmers who they claim were blocking roads with their tractors. The methods of the protesters have changed as the week has gone on. The mood for action apparently hasn't. Duncan Kennedy, BBC News.
A rebellion by Labour backbenchers is growing over government plans to cut benefits for single parents, despite ministers' insistence that they will go ahead with the proposals. In a separate development, £200 million of lottery money is to be spent on a chain of homework clubs to discourage school truancy. It's part of a plan to combat what the government describes as social exclusion.
As many as 1 in 10 children at GCSE level play truant. It not only damages their education but also hinders their chances later on in life. Homework clubs like this one in North London will now be extended nationwide to try to keep children in school. Just the first step in what ministers promise will be a much wider campaign to tackle what they call social exclusion.
When you have a combination of factors coming together, poverty, lack of a job, poor housing, bad health, then all too often people experience social exclusion. What we need to have is a unit at the heart of government reporting to the Prime Minister that will tackle these issues in a positive and a comprehensive way. That's exactly what this unit will do.
Tony Blair will launch the unit at a school in South London tomorrow. It'll operate across government with 3 key targets: to cut down on truancy, deal with the problems of homelessness and tackle run-down housing estates. But with Mr Blair facing his first backbench rebellion on Wednesday over cuts to lone parent benefits, the opposition smell a rat.
This is more to do with what's going on Wednesday with the lone parents issue, and another way of trying to say, look, we are doing something for those who are in difficulties at the bottom end of society. We're doing something for them, whilst busily taking away lone parent benefit as well. So they're trying to somehow shroud next Wednesday in a sort of smokescreen.
Even with their huge majority, ministers are taking the rebellion seriously, telling all backbenchers to cancel previous engagements and be in the Commons to support the government. The lone rebels, though, are standing firm. And the Liberal Democrats say Chancellor Gordon Brown can easily afford not to impose the cuts.
We've been able to show that there is up to £190 billion, which is now waiting in a war chest to be spent before the next election. It would be sensible just to spend a tiny, tiny proportion of that now to save lone parents from these problems.
Lone parents will see a backbench rebellion in their support. 1 or 2 ministerial aides may even resign, but the protest is likely to be smaller than some have predicted, although many of those who'll back the government will do so despite serious reservations. Lance Price, BBC News.
The Russian authorities have grounded all their Antonov 124 transport planes after yesterday's crash in Siberia, in which over 60 people are now known to have died. The Prime Minister, Viktor Chernomyrdin, has taken personal charge of the official inquiry.
Still smoking a day after the disaster, the wreckage of the giant military transport plane and the flats it destroyed. When the plane crashed, it was carrying 100 tons of fuel. There was a massive explosion and then a fire. Rescue workers found bodies that were charred beyond recognition. The Prime Minister, Viktor Chernomyrdin, toured the accident site. He's heading a special commission of inquiry ordered by President Yeltsin, who's said to be closely following every development. It's thought the plane's 2 port engines failed seconds after takeoff. Some are blaming the crash on financial cuts in the military.
We need to look very closely at the condition of the aircraft, the condition of its engines, the availability of spare parts and the availability of technical assistance, as well as looking closely at the condition and the quality of the fuel that has been used in this occasion.
Children are among those being treated in hospital for burns they suffered in the crash. Local people say flight plans for these giant military transport planes must be rerouted away from all residential areas. Just days before this disaster, there was an explosion in a coal mine in Siberia which killed 68 men. The government will have to work hard to dispel the impression that the country's economic crisis is endangering people's lives. Diana Goodman, BBC News, Moscow.
Surgical instruments used to remove the eyes of a woman suffering from CJD could have infected more transplant recipients. The procedure was carried out at Stirling Royal Infirmary, but it was only after the transplants had taken place that tests revealed the donor had CJD. The government says there is a minimal risk to a few individuals who are being contacted by their doctors. Environmental groups say they're concerned that the Kyoto International Climate Conference will fail to produce an agreement strong enough to prevent further damage to the environment. However, the Deputy Prime Minister, John Prescott, said today he's optimistic that a deal to cut emissions of greenhouse gases believed to cause global warming can be achieved.
They've converged on Kyoto from nearly every corner of the globe. Today, outside the conference hall, 6,000 environmentalists demonstrated. These people want tough targets set for reducing the man-made polluting fumes from cars and industry, which in part cause global warming. Environmentalists fear the deal being struck inside the hall will be too weak. Already there are signs that countries like Britain, which wants 20% reductions in polluting greenhouse gases within 12 years, could settle for a far lower global agreement when it's signed next Wednesday.
The extreme of these arguments are being reduced, so we're beginning to see slowly a combination of an agreement between the kind of 0 position and the 10, though a long way to go yet.
For 6 months since Labour came to power, John Prescott has been trying to wean us away from cars and onto public transport.
You've got to change. You still get the difficulties of connecting.
He believes if we use public transport instead of vehicles, we can substantially reduce emissions of carbon dioxide, which is the main damaging greenhouse gas and comes from car engines and petrol. He wants other countries to follow his example, but many, including the world's worst polluter, America, won't buy the idea, fearing reducing car use would cost jobs in the lucrative car and oil industries. Green lobby groups fear the US is winning the argument in Kyoto, which means the final deal on reducing greenhouse gases will be too weak.
0 to 10% is not enough to protect the planet. We need far bigger cuts, far earlier targets. If that does end up being the consensus of the governments in Kyoto, then it'll be a sad day. We will be deeply disappointed, and we will know that once again profits have been put before people.
With the US and Britain due to address the conference tomorrow and pressure on for a deal to be struck by Wednesday, the argument between environmentalists and the pro-oil lobby looks set to intensify. Margaret Gilmore, BBC News.
Sinn Féin's chief negotiator, Martin McGuinness, has moved further than other party colleagues and said that a united Ireland will not be the result of the current multi-party talks. The Ulster Unionist leader David Trimble has accused the Northern Ireland Secretary of trying to drive his party out of the talks.
This is the kind of issue that's always on the fringe of the talks process here. Nationalists and Republicans in South Armagh protesting about what they see as security measures increasing against the grain of the times. Sinn Féin's chief negotiator was there, no surprise. But earlier he'd gone further than anyone else in his party by saying those negotiations would not result in a united Ireland.
We're not saying to our supporters that they're going to waken up next May and that there's going to be a united Ireland. I don't think it's going to work like that, and I think that the people we represent, who I think are one of the most politically intelligent and sophisticated electorates in the Western Europe, that those people, I think, clearly see this as part of a process.
The leader of the main unionist party said he'd rather the Prime Minister wouldn't meet Sinn Féin in Downing Street later this week, and he accused the Northern Ireland Secretary, Mo Mowlam, of trying to force his party out of the talks process.
I have said that to her on a number of occasions. We're astonished at the way in which she has conducted matters in Northern Ireland since the summer. I got the feeling that she was trying to drive us out of the talks in September. I've got the feeling again in terms of the way in which she has constantly over the last few days been handing out concession after concession to Sinn Féin.
The government says far from trying to push people out of the talks, Mo Mowlam's trying to encourage them in. There's a lot of jockeying for position going on at the moment. No party wants to be seen as the cause of the talks' collapse, and yet none can be seen either at this stage to be compromising on its primary position. But the negotiations have survived worse than this, and the government believes there's plenty of life in them yet. Dennis Murray, BBC News, Belfast.
A nationwide strike which has paralysed much of Israel for several days appears to be nearing a resolution. The dispute, one of the most serious in the country's history, has affected 1 in 3 workers.
The stench of rotting garbage hangs over the streets of central Tel Aviv. The city's municipal workers are among the most militant in Israel. They were out before the rest of the country. But across Israel, piles of rubbish have been building up since the general strike started last Wednesday. Trade unionists were in an angry mood outside the National Labour Court in Jerusalem. The finance minister, who's been leading the government side, was hustled in by the police. He outraged the strikers when he described them as exploding bombs, a phrase the government usually reserves for Palestinian extremists. Amir Peretz, the head of the Israeli Trade Union Federation, has led an aggressive campaign which brought the country to a halt. Tel Aviv airport has been close to a standstill. Thousands of Israelis have been stranded abroad, and foreign tourists haven't been able to leave.
Been waiting here since Wednesday, so it's about 4 days now, 4 nights.
Post offices and banks closed during the strike. 700,000 people stopped work. Most buses and trains didn't run. Thousands of soldiers weren't able to get back to their units this morning on what is usually the start of the working week. These waited most of the day for a bus to take them to the West Bank. The immediate cause of the strike was a row over the reform of pensions, but it was also a rehearsal for what could be bigger battles if the government goes ahead with plans to privatize an economy that is heavily state-owned. The Israeli labor movement is still very strong. It's sending a clear message to the government that if it wants to take on the unions like Mrs. Thatcher did in Britain in the 80s, then it's going to have to fight every step of the way. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Football, and in the English Premiership, Wimbledon are leading Southampton by 1-2. Robbie Earle scored midway through the first half after a mistake by the Southampton defence. While in the Premier Division in Scotland, Rangers beat Hibernian 1-0. Marco Negri scored from the penalty spot after 51 minutes. Rangers remain second in the table behind Hearts. The former Leeds and Scotland football star Billy Bremner has died in hospital after a suspected heart attack. He was 54. Bremner made his debut for Leeds United as a 17-year-old and captained the side during its most successful years.
Jones trying to feed on it, Bremner! 1-0!
For anyone who watched football in the late 60s and early 70s, Billy Bremner was one of its most fiery and successful characters. He played for Leeds for 17 years, picking up every domestic honour. In the 60s, he helped them win the Intercities Fairs Cup, the League Cup and the League Championship. By 1971, he was voted Footballer of the Year. Bremner's uncompromising and competitive style made Leeds the team everyone wanted to beat. Much of his success was under manager Don Revie, and together they won the FA Cup in 1972 and the Championship again in 1974. His success, though, was marred by a less than distinguished disciplinary record. A flare-up with Kevin Keegan during the 1974 Charity Shield resulted in a fine and a ban for bringing the game into disrepute. Another bust-up in a Copenhagen nightclub got him a life ban from the national side, but he did manage 54 appearances for Scotland and captained his country during the 74 World Cup finals. His former teammates will remember him for his passion for the game.
He'd roll his sleeves up and he'd demand effort from everybody, and sometimes he got results out of nowhere, and it was all down to his fiery attitude, his will to win. And I think when the fans think of Billy, that's what they'll remember from: total commitment, total effort for the cause.
His efforts established Leeds as a major force in British and European football. They may have to wait a long time for another such influential figure. Nigel Gainsborough, BBC News.
Billy Bremner, who died earlier today. That's it for now. The late news tonight is at 8:45.
Hello there, good evening. It's been mild but wet and windy for many western areas of the country today, but we'll get rid of that rain tonight, and then blustery showers are what we can all expect tomorrow. Now the radar for today shows that rain then, some fairly heavy bursts actually across western parts of Scotland and down into the West Country. That'll work its way eastwards this evening, and then we'll see showers packing into many western areas by the end of the night, and some of those heavy and thundery. They'll be coming in on a strong to gale force southwesterly wind, a really windy night coming up through the Irish Sea, but as you can see, no problems with temperatures lowest 7 or 8. For tomorrow then, Monday morning, not too bad for all southeastern parts of Scotland or eastern England. There'll be some sunshine and I think just the odd shower coming along through the course of the day. In the west though, a really blustery day with lots of showers and the odd heavy shower with hail and thunder. Still windy too, those winds up to gale force at times in the west, but no problems with temperatures. That's it.
The face of English football is changing.
They want everyone to sit down, applaud politely and go home at the end of the day having spent £300.
The top clubs are getting richer.
What's changed about football? Money.
And some fans say they're being pushed out.
They don't want genuine supporters there anymore.
Panorama asks, is big business squeezing the life out of football? Tomorrow at 10 on BBC One.
A roundup of the news in the southeast now on BBC One from Lynette Tye.
Good evening. Angry farmers are trying to seal off the port of Dover tonight in protest to the crisis in the beef industry. Demonstrators are using horse boxes and tractors to close roads in and out of the port. Police have responded by making a number of arrests. Meanwhile, butchers around the southeast say they've been doing a roaring trade in joints of beef despite the latest scare.
Tractors clogging a roundabout leading to the port of Dover. There were 5 arrests during today's protest, but police were out in force to ensure that roads weren't closed for long.
It is overhanded, heavy-handed policing, and it is symptomatic of the frustration at the moment that the farmers are feeling now that the police are just stopping us even demonstrating.
Meanwhile, a curious backlash at butchers around the region.
Rib of beef or sirloin, would you like?
I need it on the bone.
On the bone, certainly.
Yeah.
This shop at Woodstock in Oxfordshire, one of many reporting increased sales of joints of beef.
It's actually increased sales, funnily, because most people are adamant to defy the instructions given to them. So people are actually coming in and buying beef when they don't even want beef.
Back in Kent, police are tonight repeating their calls for government cash to help them police this latest dispute, the cost of which the force says is draining its resources. Graham Majin, Newsroom South East.
British Airways has launched a crackdown on passengers who get drunk on their planes after a series of attacks on cabin crew. The airline will now refuse to let tipsy travellers fly.
Many people have already had a few drinks before they even get on a plane at Heathrow after going to one of the airport's many pub concessions. These travellers have mixed feelings about plans to curb their consumption.
Free drinking is one of the main attractives for flying. If they try to stop drinking, maybe people, they lose customers.
Everybody likes to have 1 or 2 drinks, kind of get them mellowed out, that's fine, but nobody needs to be excessive.
Now BA staff will refuse to check in anyone who seems too drunk to fly and confiscate alcohol from passengers who've become inebriated.
Safety must be paramount, and so when people become obstreperous and abusive, then clearly we have to draw the line and we must be firm in the action we take.
Sarah Lockett, Newsroom South East, Heathrow Airport.
The latest Conservative to defect is warning that more MPs in the South East will follow suit. Former London MEP Peter Price says he's joining the Liberal Democrats in protest at William Hague's policy on Europe.
Peter Price trying to capture votes in South East London during his unsuccessful campaign in 1994. He'd been the Conservative MEP in the area for 15 years. He blames William Hague's hardline policy on Europe for forcing him to leave the party. On BBC Two's Around Westminster programme today, he warned there were lots of dissatisfied people in the party and that more Tory MPs in the South East would defect.
I think William Hague has written the shortest political suicide note in history by the choice of this formula of ruling out the single currency for 10 years.
The Tories' London spokesman Richard Ottaway claimed the latest defection wasn't a body blow for the party. He said Peter Price wasn't an influential figure and that defections worked both ways. Joanne Coburn, Newsroom South East.
Finally, 3 young brothers went down to the zoo this weekend and got a big surprise. The trio from South London, Christian, William and James Campbell Warner, discovered they were the millionth visitors to the London Zoo this year. They were given fluffy toys, a free lunch and a special VIP tour of the zoo, where they made some rather large new friends. Well, that's about it for now. You can keep up with more news on the South East on our CSAX pages from page 160. We're back in Business Breakfast tomorrow morning.
the voice that read the shipping forecast had terrific strength about it, terrific certitude. It also conjured up kind of the threat of gale. So you felt secure in a sense, listening at home. It was a form of poem, really. Dogger, Rockall, Malin, Irish Sea. Green, swift upsurges, North Atlantic flux, conjured by that strong gale warning voice, collapse into a sibilant penumbra. Midnight and close down. Sirens of the tundra, of Eel Road, Steel Road, Whale Road, Keel Road, raise their wind-compounded keen behind the bays and drive the trawlers to the lee of Wicklow.
It's the last in the series, and there's still no better. Get well soon in 35 minutes on BBC One. Now on BBC One, Songs of Praise with Steve Chalk.
In this week's Song